everyone, welcome back to the Book and Life podcast. And this is a guest I have been dying to get on. And I know I'm going to butcher her name, and I'm going to apologize to her before that. But today we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects. And you all know what it is, so that's giving you a hint. But before we get into that, I've got a little blurb from Marianne Curley for you guys all to enjoy, and it's the fourth book in the Time Guardian series, and it's called The Shadow. The battle is over, the war is won, the prophecy complete, but life can't just pick up where it left off for Ethan, struggling to cope with tragic loss at odds with friends in the Guard. He finds himself adrift, jumping at shadows and sensing someone who can't possibly be there. Blaming herself for the goddess Lathena's death, Giselle swears revenge and vilify the Immortal's plan for world domination, but Giselle hadn't planned on love, and that leaves her with an unbearable choice. Should she follow her heart or the strings of a goddess short on praise but high on expectation? Who continues to pull her from the grave? As the Guard and the Order battle through the past and into an impossible future, darkness lurks around every corner. The fight for the world's survival rests with just one. Is it friend or foe? Who stands in the darkness? And just a reminder that Rosemary Rao, the author of The Price of Freedom, from her Roman British crime series, is donating her entire portion of royalties to the Ukraine Refugee Fund, and so is her agent donating her commission. So please please check out The Price of Freedom by Rosemary Rao to see what you can do to support a country desperately in need. With that being said, we're going to talk about things that just makes me so happy. So I'm not going to screw up her name too badly, I hope, but please welcome Maya Ameyaw. Did I get that right?
Ameyaw.
Ameyaw. Okay, I was close. God damn it. I was practicing that all morning.
Don't worry, I'm one of the people who I don't care if people pronounce my name wrong. I know it's difficult, and I'm not going to get mad because I'm bad at pronouncing names. So, yeah.
Well, I'm Crystal Fleming. I used to be Crystal Bain, and I had to kind of teach kids to say my name. And it was so funny because I'd always get Crystal or Miss Payne, because they would always pronounce the B as a P. So I get Miss Payne. So at least with Fleming, it's not as bad. I get Fleming or Flemon. Flemon's a new one, actually. So yeah, when I was working with kids, it was always interesting. So when I get people's names wrong, I still feel bad.
Don't
because
feel
my
bad
mom
at all.
spelt it
I
funny.
know if you've never heard a name before, how are you supposed to know how to pronounce it? You know?
Exactly, yeah. And when I was dealing with people in Hollywood, oh my gosh, if you got their name wrong, it was like scandalous.
Right.
Scandalous doesn't even cover it. So I always say to them, look, if I butcher your name, I'm really, really sorry. But, it's life.
Okay. It's okay.
Yeah. So Hollywood lifestyle, I swear, is not fun. Not for everyone. That's why I like Scotland. So I have to say that having you on for When It All Syncs Up is just a dream come true for me. I know this is your debut novel. I know I'm one of the first people to interview you, but I saw it. You've already got 4 reviews. You're 5 out of 5. And everyone's talking about this on Goodreads right now, and everyone's really excited. So, can you tell us a little bit about it and what inspired you to write it? And why did you choose dance?
Yeah, definitely. So When It All Syncs Up is about a ballet dancer named Aisha. She's a 16-year-old ballet dancer who is at a elite school, and she's been doing ballet since she was like very small, like toddler type of thing, and she's just been very focused for a long time, and she's kind of realizing that there is some discrimination that she's dealing with within the ballet world, and that's preventing her from moving forward with her career. And that dealing with that has kind of caused some mental health issues for her, and she has to kind of take a step back from her goal of achieving, like, getting into an apprenticeship, getting into a great ballet company, and she needs to take a step back and think about her mental health and, like, why is she doing this? Is it because other people are telling her she should be a dancer, or if she actually wants to be a dancer, and kind of dealing with the trauma that she's faced with discrimination in that arena. So that's the main part of it. So I love dance. I'm not a professional ballet dancer. It's a really hard thing to do. You have to be an extreme athlete, and I have
Yep.
severe asthma. So I do dance every day, and it's a big part of my wellness, but I don't do professional ballet. Since it's like,
It's hard. It really is hard going. I'll give you that. I never was professional, but I was professional street hip hop. But
yeah.
we performed in clubs, so we used to make up storylines, and we would perform stories in the clubs. So sometimes I would be doing a dance lift on a bar or on a DJ booth, or jumping off something and getting caught, or thrown in the air. So it was very much like a contemporary hip hop style, but we called it street and we called it flying because it was a lot to do with flying through the air and using our bodies to tell stories. Um, Sometimes I got dropped on my head because my partner got distracted by short
Oh
skirts.
no,
Oh no,
that
it's
doesn't
it's
sound
it's, it's hilarious. We're in this really really dangerous lift on a bar, which means we don't have a lot of space. And this girl comes by, and I swear the skirt was low enough we could see her knickers, and it was very very short. And he could not resist.
good. Oh
He couldn't
no.
resist looking at her. And one minute I was above his head, and the next minute I went over his head and was lying flat on my back on the bar thinking, I hate you so much right now.
Yeah, dance definitely takes a lot of trust when you have a partner. And so Aisha's partner in the book is someone named Neil, who's her best friend. And they've always had a very close bond. And so while Aisha is dealing with her mental health issues, due to like what's going on with like this discrimination in ballet and wondering if this is like what she truly wants, he's dealing with an addiction issue, and she's putting a
Yeah.
lot of her attention into helping him deal with this rather than focusing on her own issues. For I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, the majority of the book she's doing that, and then kind of realizing like, oh, like I'm dealing with stuff too that I need to work through, and dealing with that through conventional therapy and then also through dance. So even though dance has been something that's caused trauma for her, it's also something that is helping to heal her when she starts to explore contemporary and modern dance. And that's how she's able to slowly figure out what she truly wants and what her identity is.
And I think that's a great story to be kind of not only covering mental health, especially after the last 2 years, but also to be kind of doing that story of it's okay to go find yourself. I think being a dancer, I knew very well that we were not expected to find ourselves. We were expected to play these larger than life characters and be something else other than ourselves. And that, I mean, it took me a very long time to figure out who I was and not who my dance character was. So I love that. I love the fact she's going on this journey. And you're right. I mean, pain pill addiction is exceedingly bad in dancing as well as cocaine. So it's really good to hear a story of somebody not ending up in the grave, actually getting help from trusted friends. Because a lot of dancers, because it's such a cutthroat business, they would just move on to somebody else. They wouldn't bother to stick around and put that time and that effort into helping someone. So I think that's amazing what you're doing, and I really think that's such a positive message to hear. So I'm very very overwhelmingly blessed to have you on at the moment.
No problem at all. I'm really happy to be here.
And sometimes it's fun to explore ideas. So what I know this sounds awful, but what inspired you to write this? What was like your moment of I need to write a dance book that covers all these issues?
Well, like I said, like I'm not a professional dancer, but dance has been a huge part of myself since like before I can remember. Like if I hear
Yeah.
music, then I'm dancing. Like that's kind of like the main part of my life where it's just like if I hear something, I need to start dancing, and that's
Yep.
how it works for me. So like even like that's kind of like the main like core memories I have as a young child of just like if I'm somewhere, even if it's in public, if I hear music, I'm just going to be up there just expressing what I want to express.
Yeah.
So that's something that Aisha shares with me, but she kind of like went somewhere else with it. Like I would say writing is like my main passion that I explored from when I was a kid because it was just something
Yeah.
that we did in our household. So writing and dancing are important for me, but it's more like my main character is like she's into dancing, that's her whole life. And then kind of dealing with like what do you do when your passion is something that you've loved all your life, but it doesn't love you back. And you have
Yeah.
to kind of figure out how to deal with that and how to make concessions of like, oh, like maybe I can figure out another way to get through people like passing me up for roles or like not thinking that I'm aesthetically fitting into a show so they don't cast me, stuff like that. And then, because that's, yeah, it's very, relevant to like the dance world right now.
And I also think it's very relevant to publishing as well, because I mean it is a case of not that, we all don't fit the same shoe, particularly in publishing as well. So if somebody's not essentially sold on your voice, they might not necessarily pick you up and give you a chance. So not every industry is going to love you back, and I learned that the hard way in wrestling. I was dancing in nightclubs, but I was training to be a wrestling writer, which sounds really weird when I say it out loud. But essentially, I was training under Vince Russo, and I was working with these wrestlers to learn how to write wrestling matches because I knew physically I wasn't going to be able to do it, and that led me to understanding that their business really doesn't love them back. In fact, it hates them, and yeah, and I felt that myself, and I felt just totally blown away by the fact that not every industry loves you back and not every industry is going to understand you. So, yeah, I mean, I just love that element that you were able to include in that.
Yeah, like even though I've never been in the professional dance world and seen that type of thing happen to me, it's happened to me in every other area of my life. So I can still relate to it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way because you're encouraging people to self-expression. Hold on a second. So, I mean, that's a really good thing for you to talk about, to try and educate people about, to do. I think that's really awesome. So, where do you kind of envision your dream book going? Like, where do you see it going, and where do you see things changing in regards to that book? Do you have like a set dream you want to see it achieve, or um, has it already kind of achieved that goal for you?
Right. Okay. So, in terms of dance and dancers of color, specifically Black dancers, um, when I was doing my research, I was researching a lot about Misty Copeland. Was at the American Dance Theater, one of the first Black dancers to be a principal dancer, um, and also Michaela DePrince, who is explicitly mentioned in the book, who is one of the most successful dark skinned Black dancers in the world. So,
I know she's
um,
amazing.
yeah, she is amazing. So, she's one of the main inspirations of my main character because it's kind of like she's a dark skinned Black girl looking for inspiration and she sees Michaela Cole succeeding. So, she kind of has her as her inner like cheerleader, like keep going. And that's kind of a consistent theme throughout the book. So, with even with Misty, she released an article like in 2020 talking about the fact that she was actually taken out of Swan Lake at her company because they didn't want her in there because she wasn't fitting the aesthetic of Swan Lake in
Yeah, that's
2020
right.
as a light skinned dancer.
Yeah,
So that kind of speaks to how severe the racism in the ballet world is at this time.
it's really bad. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to kind of speak to like Misty Copeland is a light skinned dancer. My character is a dark skinned dancer, and how much um, resistance and barriers a dark skinned dancer would be dealing with at the same time, to the point of like not being able to get even into a company. So
yeah.
that
Of
thing. So
course.
I'm hoping to see more progress. Like even my character's progress in the book is I guess speculative in a way because she's a Canadian dancer. I haven't seen like a lot of like Black Canadian female dancers do as that well currently, because
It's a very tough market, yeah.
right. So I'm hoping it serves as kind of like a inspirational thing to like dancers these days who are like hoping that like the traditional ballet world opens up even more because the National Ballet of Canada, they have become slightly more diverse, but I'm hoping to see even more of that diversity come through in the future, especially for
Yeah.
darker skinned dancers.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I would love to see sort of a more equal kind of dance world arrive, because right now it's very unequal. You know, we're seeing disabled dancers not getting the same opportunities. We're seeing sort of other minorities of dancers not getting that sort of ability to break in and to really make a name for themselves. And I think ballet is going to be very much the last, I always say the last hurdle of inclusion. And I think that's because it's been very much a symbol of privilege for so long.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that as a dancer, but it was.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't become the best ballet dancer unless your mom had a couple mil stuffed in a bank account somewhere, because it was, you know, the dance shoes are expensive, the hours you put in is expensive. You'd actually be surprised to see how inclusive the Scottish dance scene is, because we've had some really successful colored skin dancers over here and minorities over here, and it is growing. And we're, you know, Scotland really promotes that inclusivity and equality to all in ballet. It's just in other countries they're lagging behind, and it's so sad to me that that's the case. And I'm really hopeful that we can kind of fix it almost in a way that makes it all okay, and we can have this inclusive environment and a more open environment for everybody to be involved in, and everyone to really enjoy and share their messages. And I think we need actually new written ballets to I think to achieve that. So going into our book portion of the podcast, this is the part where a lot of readers all get excited, and I can hear them all clapping and saying, yeah, book recommendation time. What book have you read recently that stuck with you the most?
A book I read recently that really stuck with me. So I definitely am a huge YA fan, even though I'm not technically like a YA person anymore.
Yeah.
What I really love about YA and what compels me to write YA is just like the first, like I feel like that first experiences I feel like are very I don't know, they're just exciting, you know, when you have that first love, first crush type of thing, or the first time, or while you're realizing who you really are. Like, I think that's a really exciting time, and that's what compels me to, you know, just read YA. So,
Oh, I get it. I mean, I'm 33 years old and I still love to read YA, but I think like my excuse when I really think about it is because I spent my life growing up in hospital. So before I kind of got out and I got into the dance scene and I kind of caused a bit of mayhem, I lived in hospitals. So my first was really in the confines of wards, and that's a totally different environment than what normal kids got to experience. And in some ways, I didn't have that childhood because I was, you know, attempting to fight off quite a disabling and crippling disease. So I love going back and being able to read other people's first times and first, you know, ways that they've kind of been able to put themselves in a book, because you can't be an author and not put yourself in there, not put a little bit of your heart and a little bit of your soul and your passion and your love into it. And I think that when you're reading YA, you're kind of getting a glimpse inside of somebody else's life, and maybe what they wanted is their own first experiences. So I love that too. I'm a YA fan. Honestly, if you could see my bookshelf right now, it's bursting with YA fantasy, probably more than anything right now. Like, because I love. Do you do the book boxes? like the
Yeah.
ones that come every month. I'm a Fairy Loot
Nice.
subscriber, so I love them. So I have like the Fairy Loot comes every month, and it's like my pick me up. So because my disease has been really bad this last 2 years, um, it's just like getting that through the door and it being a YA and knowing that I'm not gonna have to put a lot of emotion or energy into that book and I can just enjoy it for what it is. Cheers me up no end because I don't have to think about like all the other struggles that I go through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So I think it's sort of it doesn't matter what age you are, you can connect with it on any level, I suppose.
Very true. So that's what it has always drawn me to YA in terms of stuff that's kind of evergreen for me. Sarah Dessen, I've read almost all of her books, and she's written like over 10 books. They're all amazing. Like Along for the Ride just came out on Netflix a couple weeks ago, but I remember watching How to Deal like over 10 years ago when I was like not even a teenager yet. I think I was like 9 years old reading that. Like the two books that How to Deal were based on. So Sarah Dessen has always been a huge inspiration for me. And at that time there weren't really a lot of people of color writing books like that. So I'm just really excited to see a lot of authors coming up right now. Like Joya Goffney is a huge person that she's a huge author who's an inspiration for me because she wrote Excuse Me When I Ugly Cry,
which was a fantastic book. Yeah,
it was fantastic. She's great. So it really gave me that type of Sarah Dessen vibe, but in a way that I could like personally relate to. So yeah,
and we all ugly cry. I mean, there's not a girl in this world that doesn't ugly cry. Because we all have those moments where we're just like, oh, fuck it, gonna let it go. And you just, you let go and you just cry your heart out because sometimes you just need a good cry to let all of that steam out and you can just get started all over again. So yeah, no, that's why I loved it because I didn't feel so guilty about for my ugly cries anymore. It's more, do you ever get embarrassed when you cry and you end up with like, I have to go get tissues because I get like super embarrassed about my nose running.
Oh yeah, no, I never cry in public. I'm like, it's actually very similar to my main character in When It All Sinks Up. Like crying isn't like a thing. Like as a dancer, she's just like, I have to be strong. I have to just be happy all the time. So I'm not completely related to my character, but in that sense of just like, we don't cry. That's kind of
I mean, I don't either, but like there's those moments in hospital where you're just like everything gets too much and you're just like, I need an ugly cry, and I go into the bathroom and I like lock the door and I just like go. But then I have these moments where I actually stop just for like a second to blow my nose. Yeah. Because I can't have a runny nose. I'm like the weirdest person ever. Like me and my husband could have a fight, and if I've got a runny nose, I'm like, pause so I can go get tissue. And he thinks it's so weird, like it's our kind of like our out for an argument almost, because like he understands that I can't have a runny nose, but if his nose is running he just continues on, and I have to then go get him one because I can't bear to look can't bear to watch his running nose. I'm just like, here. Bless him, he's 6'2", and he just he does not find me funny sometimes, but on that one, So if you just had like endless amount of time, what author would you pick, past or present, to just sit and read and enjoy?
Oh, definitely Courtney Summers, who's a Canadian author. Their most popular book is Sadie, but I started reading them with their first book when I was 16. It Cracked Up to Be. So I walked into a bookstore and saw their book and bought it and then read it in literally one night, the quickest I've ever read a book. So yeah, Courtney Summers, she just writes books about unlikable girls, admittedly, from her perspective. Girls who are difficult, who aren't going to be, maybe a little bit more palatable, like, Sarah Dessen's protagonist, right? Girls who swear, who aren't like super happy all the time, who aren't willing to forgive super easily and are dealing with a lot of trauma. So definitely Sarah sorry, Courtney Summers is my favorite. Her first book cracked up to be, it's very formative for me because while I was reading it, I was also writing at the same time, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, characters can be this messy and like messed up, and
Yeah, they can get mean and yeah. I swear she had an influence on Marie's world, because Marie's so unlikable a lot of the time because she does things and then you almost have to think, well, why? You almost have that moment of, oh, I know why she's done that. It's because she's protecting her sister or she's doing something for her dad or do you know what I mean? You have that kind of dawning moment, but for that first little while, you're like, fucking hate this chick, you know? But then you realize, like, I always leave that little thread of realization for people to kind of pick up on with her. And she seems bossy and like she's got it all together, but in actuality, she's a huge, utter emotional mess behind the scenes. Like, she's never
exactly.
dealt with anything. She's never figured out who she is. She's just always gone, not reacted to everything that's happened rather than get ahead of things and get things under control. So I love that. So actually, you kind of made me reveal a little bit more about Marie's world than any of my readers I've ever known before. So that's kind of cool.
Love that. Yeah, yeah. So that's definitely, yeah. Courtney Summers. All of her characters are very strong, like characters who know what they want and aren't afraid to say what they are feeling. So yeah, definitely influenced by that.
Is there an author, past and present, like who you would say definitely inspired you to pick up your first book? But is there also an author who made you pick up the pen for the first time?
Oh yeah, so definitely Catherine Applegate, or K.A. Applegate, who wrote the Animorph series. So I talk about the Animorphs way too much, and people are just like, Animorphs are bad. Have you seen the covers? The covers are like the most horrific, nightmarish things you've ever seen. So
Yep.
for people who don't know, Animorphs is about, it's like a sci-fi type of thing where like these like 13, 14 year olds discover that there are aliens who are trying to take over the world, but there are good aliens who are trying to help them, and the good aliens give them the ability to morph into any animal that they want to stop the bad aliens. So
I
yeah.
love that though. That's an actual really awesome sci-fi compared to some of the ones that I've been introduced to. Like somebody I had to just do a thing on The Dispossessed by Ursula
Mhm.
Le Guin, and I swear that went right over my head. I just had no clue what on earth I was reading. So I'm always wary about sci-fi because of that. I always feel like I'm not smart enough to understand it. So I love when I hear one that I'm like, oh, I get that. That's a good series, yeah. So
Yeah, these were super
you're
exciting.
kind of swaying me that way a bit more.
Definitely, these were just like scholastic, really short paperbacks that I was reading when I was like, I don't know, like 12. So it was very accessible for sure.
Of course,
And
yeah.
it was accessible, but I was just like, I feel like parents didn't realize how dark these books were because it was just about like these
Yeah.
12, 14, 13-year-olds like killing aliens and like adults who, okay, so the aliens who were taking over are basically like very similar to Stephanie Meyer's book The Host, where it was a
Yeah.
parasite that would take over humans and no one knew that they were taken over. And
Yep.
Stephanie Miles definitely stole that from Animorphs. But
I think so too. Like she gets accused of a lot, but I cannot deny that she did do that. I think quite badly. Did you
yeah.
actually get her latest one, Edward?
Oh no, I never actually read that. And I was obsessed with Twilight when I was a teenager. And I was just
Don't read it. Seriously.
I won't. But
I made the big mistake. I was last year. I could do nothing but read. I was stuck in hospital. I was in ICU most of it, and my husband picked a book for me. And unfortunately, he picked Edward.
yeah, the Midnight
I
Sun.
never, ever. If you know what size Edward is, it's like the doorstop. It's a big book. It's a
Yeah.
chunky book, and of course, he brought me the hardback version. So yeah, I had to try and read in a hospital bed when I couldn't lift my legs up and I couldn't like hold it with my arms because I was full of tubes and stuff. So I had like pillows trying to read, and it was just a thing. It was just it was awful,
Yeah.
and I wish I could have just like gotten into the story and it being different. And I really thought it would be different. I thought it would have been more about Edward's life before Bella, but it really wasn't. It was about all those times he would disappear on her, and it just I felt really Yeah, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and I just felt very let down. I love all her other work, and I think she's a really talented writer. And we all have one bad book, and I think unfortunately that was just hers.
Yeah, like I remember like when Twilight came out, I was like 15, 16, so I was right in the
Yeah,
pocket for to be fully into it, and
yeah.
then seeing that it was going to be made into a movie, and then it was Robert Pattinson who I was in love with. It was a
Yep.
problem for me.
Oh, it
But
was a problem for all of us. I was like 20 odds, and I had a partner, and I've been with this guy for 14 years, and I was so addicted. Like his cousins gave me them, and they were like, "You've got to read this." And next thing I knew, I read the whole three books, and I'm like, "What did you guys do to me?"
yeah, it was a lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot, and I was in my 20s, and I'm thinking, "Wow." I had so many like thoughts on that book in like half an hour. It was ridiculous. So
So
when
I
you go to bookstores, what genre would you say that you're drawn to more? And this can you can like because we all do it online. We always Google books online, and we always look at bookstores online. So what's the ones you look at when you're online, and what's the ones that you tend to navigate to when you're in the bookstore?
So yeah, like I said, I'm a big fan of young adults. I've been not like drawn more to adult romance recently, so like
Yeah,
Talia Hibbert type of stuff, like the
of
Brown
course.
sisters. That's been more interesting to me lately. I really like happy books, I have to say. Like, even though like I like a lot of trauma and like stuff happening in my books, but like even with like Sarah Dessen, how like there's a lot of dark stuff. It's like there's always something cute happening at the end. So that's kind
Yeah,
of
there's always a
stuff
good
I'm
ending. Yeah, yeah. I like that too. I think growing up with Mills and Boone kind of changed that for me. Like I think it's Harlequin they call it aside
yeah,
you. But it's Mills and Boone here, and it's just very much of you get this very traumatic love story, and then you always get a happy ending at the end. And I was just always fascinated with them, and I started reading them when I was 8 or 9, stealing them from my mother's drawer. And of course, they were not suitable for an 8 or 9 year old, especially the Mills and Boone modern line, which was her favorite. Um, so yeah, I love the happy story and the endings as well. But I also like ones that don't give me an ending. That's almost like a cliffhanger, so that I have to go get the next one because it gives me an excuse to read series, and I'm huge on series reading. So yeah, I love that.
for sure.
Has there ever been a book that you've picked up and you just wished you'd never touched?
I mean, a couple. Like, I feel like I'm not as extreme in my hatred for books as I was when I was younger. Like, when I was a
Yeah,
teen and I read a bad book, like, it made me so angry and I wanted to tell everyone about how much I hated it. And I'm
yeah.
really glad that I wasn't on Goodreads then, so it could be used against me.
Yeah, because you'd have like 50 negative reviews or
No,
something.
literally.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm there. I'm there with you.
So I
Uh,
use like Shelfari, which is like extinct now, and I'm just like, thank God no one saw my reviews for things because now I'm in writing and people who worked in those books that I didn't like might see my review. Like, that's just not good. So,
well, you'd actually realize publishing is a very forgiving world, so you would never got like ousted just because you did like a bad review on somebody. But I think they would actually probably appreciate your honesty because that's something that we don't get a lot of in the publishing industry is honesty. Can get some really good scam artists and con artists out there, and so yeah, honesty is like a huge thing, and I think the more honest you are, like you get a leg up almost because people tend to trust you more and want to see you succeed. So I would never worry about that. I think be honest about what you like and what you don't like, and go for it. So we're going into the writing portion of this podcast, which everybody really adores and likes. How would you go about sort of creating your angst moments, your moments of darkness, and with your characters? Was there a particular thing that you did with the storylines to get you into that frame of mind? Was it music, watching stuff? How did you go about creating those moments of I don't know if this character is going to survive or not?
yeah. So I feel like those are the moments that I think about first when I'm creating the story. Those intense
I think
moments.
we all do that actually.
Yeah. So I feel like for me, definitely music plays a huge part. And it was very special for When It All Sings Up because of the fact that like even though I'm not a professional dancer and I've never done like professional choreography, sometimes I would listen to a song and then I would just picture my characters like performing original
Yep.
choreography to the song. And then it was just kind of
Yeah.
like me, like, okay, I'm picturing this, and then like let me just write it all down. So it was
Yeah.
that type
That's
of
a better way of doing it than being a professional, trust me. It's much harder if you're a professional and you're
I'm
trying
sure.
to write down your choreography because you can't write down the name of the dance moves. You have to actually describe what they're doing. So you've got a leg up on a lot of us in that regard.
I mean, it was a little bit easy for me because it was just like the emotional aspect of what they were doing
Yeah,
rather than the technical
exactly.
aspect. Which, when I shared the story with people who were actual dancers, they were just like, I could feel the emotion of it, even though you weren't describing all the technical stuff.
Yeah,
So I feel like my love of dance probably translated to that and like the emotional aspect of just like sometimes like I have like very extensive playlists that have to do with
yeah,
very specific scenes, and like I know all authors have playlists, but it's kind of like this is what my character was dancing to in this scene, and like
yep.
what they were singing and like what covers they were doing, so all of that stuff.
I've got that. Yep. I have I'm one of those. I have playlists for everything I write, and it's funny you say that because the playlist actually for Marie's World, I think it's over 1,000 hours of songs I have for 3 books. Because like I never had the idea of scenes. I wish I had your idea for scenes. So I've just got like I kept adding music to that kind of playlist for that series, and now it's like 1,000 hours, and I'm thinking, holy, I'm never going to listen to all that, like, but you do end up doing it through edits and everything else if you keep playing the music while you're editing and reading and stuff. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
but I love that. I just love how you use that as your way of getting into that frame of mind. So, what inspired you to add your voice to your style of writing? What made you choose your genre for you to add your writing voice to it? Like, what drew you to that genre more than anything to write? Just to write it.
Oh, well, I feel like I definitely qualify as like a teen in my 30s. Like, I
Yeah.
people probably, if they hear me speak, they're just like, "Oh, that's a child." So that's
No,
like my
no, you're not
natural.
the only one. I get that all the time. I go to my mother-in-law's and I have random people that come over and go, "Is your granddaughter Aria here? Because I thought I heard a child."
Right. Yeah.
I'm
So
33 years old, people.
there we go. Yeah. So that's kind of like my easiest voice to get into is a teen voice.
Yep.
Um, I feel like that's kind of just like what naturally drew me because I feel like some people say that they struggle with finding teen voice. That's never really a problem for me. So that's why it's kind of like my natural thing.
I love that, and I think if you've got the same problem as me where people think you're younger than you actually are because you have one of those gorgeous faces that does make you look a lot younger.
Thank you.
Because honestly, I thought you were barely 20 and I was
No,
like, wait, if I guess at her age, I'm so going to get this wrong. And I was a bartender, by the way. So, like, I always think people are younger than they actually are.
I appreciate that.
I,
Like I'm trying to keep
so
that.
I ID'd everyone. Oh, but no, like, because when I first saw your picture, and I'm like, wow, she's really beautiful. She must be a
Oh,
dancer. Like, that was my
that's
instant
sweet.
thought when I saw you. And I was just like, wow. And she's adding her voice to the dance world. She's going to be one of my top favorites now. Need to
Really
stop
sweet.
falling in love with authors. I
Oh,
can't help it.
pretty sweet.
So when you write, is it like a movie in your head, or do you more see it like a jigsaw puzzle where you're kind of moving the pieces around to get the picture?
It's more like a movie because I'm seeing like all of the like dance numbers in my head, and a lot of
Yeah.
the dance numbers inspired like a lot of the major scenes in this book, right? So it was kind of like I'm just seeing them. I have like the people I fan casted as the characters, and like they're just kind of like talking and exploring, and that's how it kind of is for me.
Oh, cool. I love that. That is awesome. Like for me, when I write romance, it's a movie. But if I have to do crime, which I haven't finished my crime novel, but I'm getting there. It's a very long, arduous process. But it's very much like a jigsaw puzzle because you're trying to take all the pieces together to kind of create that overall big picture of the murder. So it's very much, I think it's more a genre thing. Like if you're in a certain genre, it's movie based, and if you're in a different genre, it's very much jigsaw. So I mean, that's been my experience since doing the show. I've interviewed, you're my 24th episode. So like over the 24, it seems to be that's the consensus of what a lot of people say. Crime writers always say kind of, the jigsaw angle, and then other, more romance writers and YA writers always say movie. So I find that interesting. I find that comparison very interesting. I don't know if that makes any, difference to you, but I think knowing and understanding industry sometimes can help us lift other authors up, and that's what I really want to do with this, is to lift up everyone and give everybody a chance to have their voices heard.
For sure.
So which character, either that you've read or you've written, that stayed with you the most or the longest?
Probably Parker from Cracked Up to Be by Courtney
Oh,
Summers.
okay.
So she was, like I said before, the Cracked Up to Be was the first Courtney Summers book I read, and just seeing a character who wasn't afraid to speak her mind or like offend people or not like just be a people pleasing type of person as like a teen was really refreshing. And it was kind of like refreshing to see like a teen portrayed how like I actually felt as a teen, like where like teens swear and they say really inappropriate things constantly, and it's
we all do, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, when I was a teenager a long time ago, it was kind of like, oh, you didn't see that. You just saw people being polite and friendly and likable. So that was kind of one of the main characters that I really identified with.
Did you ever have like that moment, I know I've had it, where you were reading a book and you were like, this character is not even close to what a real person would be like, and just get so mad with it?
Yeah, all the time. Like, honestly, like Bella in Twilight, like, I don't know what was going on with Bella, but she seemed like really focused on Edward and like had no goals of her own. So that was a little bit...
that bothered me too. Thank you. Yeah. You are like the first person to agree with me since I was 20. I am so happy. Finally, somebody with common sense.
Definitely characters like that have bothered me, for sure.
We need a sisterhood of common sense readers where we can be like, what the hell is this girl thinking? Like, is there any sense in this brain of hers? Like, yeah. That's just me personally. I like other people to be like, common sense. So, yeah. That's my little rando for the day. Is there a character that you wish you could write more about that's currently in your book? Like a little side character that you think, I really would like to write more about them?
Definitely. So the first version of When It All Syncs Up had 3 point of views. It was Aisha.
Oh, wow.
And her dance partner, Neil, and then her love interest, Ollie. So currently I'm working on a companion novel about Ollie from his perspective. So I'm so happy to explore that, because originally, like, I had so much of his stuff in there. And then the one that I really would love to explore, but I probably won't have a chance to, is Neil.
You never know. You never know.
Well, we'll see what happens. But like, yeah, at this moment, I don't think I'll be able to do that. And yeah, definitely his voice when I was first writing the 3 perspective was one of the strongest ones. So yeah.
Yeah, I have that problem. With Marie's World, every character is their own book. So Marie's got a whole series of books because obviously she's the main character, but like Layla's got her own, and Edward's got his own, and Will, and all the characters have their own. But there's this guy called Harold in it who's like the villain, but he's actually like this really misunderstood guy, and he drives me mad. Literally mad, because every book he's in, I just want to write more and more and more about him. Because he's like one of these characters that sits in the corner and goes, but what about me? And it's just like, you're not in the scene. You know, where you just want to throw them out the door and just like lock it. Yeah, he's that character for me. So I love that. I love that when people could just like look at their whole characters as a group and say, I really want to learn more about that one there. I think it's good because it gets the readers excited, and it means that they know that there's a lot more possibility to the story than just one point of view. What techniques have you found helpful, and what ones did you wish you hadn't tried?
Do you mean writing techniques?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when I first started writing when I was a teenager, I was writing animal fan fiction. Did not have any writing techniques. I was just like writing stuff.
Yep, we've all been there.
Exactly. And then I started writing original fiction that was like not fan fiction, but very closely associated with X-Men. Um,
Yep.
so that's when I kind of like started outlining a little bit. So I would just kind of like every week I would be like, okay, I'm going to write a chapter. I'll do like a couple notes about what's going to happen and then send it to my friends. And that was kind of the extent of my writing process for a long time before after college I was like, oh, let me just try and get into writing professionally. Let's see how this works. So I started writing a little bit more extensive outlines, but even for when it all syncs up, I feel like my outlines are crap. I don't even know how it worked out that this is a book now. But people liked it, and I was just kind of like reading craft books along the way, and got into Abby Emmons, who is a YouTuber who
Yep.
is a huge proponent of the 3 act structure. So that's kind
Yep.
of like what I've been using and what I went back to revise when it all syncs up. So kind of like making sure you have like the hook of the novel and then going into like the inciting incident and making sure they're all at the right places. So kind of like making like I'm not a huge math person and I honestly hate math, but kind of like realized like
So do I.
yeah. So math is a huge important part of having a novel that people like. You have to hit
Yep.
those certain um like beats at a certain time for people to be like, oh, this is how a book works. So yeah, I've definitely been getting a lot more into that.
I've been doing this for over a decade, and I just figured out beats like 2 years back.
So
So yeah, I completely understand. And sometimes, like, particularly if you're learning technique as you're writing, it's actually the best way to learn it because you can then figure out how the beats fit into your voice rather than making your voice fit the beats. um it's tough, but it's good to know it and to be able to do it and to work that angle and actually understand it. So moving on to your life. Now, I know you've got a really fascinating life, and I can't wait to share all this stuff with you. What is the first thing you do when you want to get de stressed and you don't want to be thinking about editing or writing or any of that stuff? What is it that you do to just go, ha?
usually I will put on some relaxing music. I'm a big fan of lo-fi. Lo-fi is just helps me focus, but then it also helps me relax when I'm like not trying to focus on anything. So just like
Yeah.
any lo-fi thing on YouTube I can find that'll get me into a relaxed state where I'm not like super anxious. That's what I usually use. Or even like some like just straightforward like meditation or mindfulness music I can find. And yeah, I'm really into mindfulness and meditation. So um clearing one's mind is a difficult task, but I'm just trying to be aware of the thoughts that I'm having and not have them bombard me all at once. So that's kind of
Yeah.
the main thing.
It's a
So
good skill to have. Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of what helps me get into a relaxed state and kind of relax.
That's really awesome. So, what hobbies do you enjoy, and what ones do you wish you had more time to explore?
Dancing. That's one of the main ones. So I feel like it's kind of like this unfulfilled thing of like I have this character who's doing all this amazing dance moves that I could never do in a million years. So I love
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of it. Definitely. Um, and then I really like doing art sometimes. So like I like to paint. I'm not good at painting, but I still like to paint. I'll do like
Yep.
little watercolors and stuff like that. Um, you know, reading. Those are the main things. Yeah.
I know I'm the same. I do like paint by numbers and diamond painting and cross stitch, and I do anything that's crafty that can get me away from writing just so that I can clear my brain and just I always look on it like a plumbing issue. Like I get rid of all the blocks and all the gunk and all the crap and I just so I have a fresh way of thinking by the time I have to start again and get through the next bit, you know, and I recommend that to everyone. Is are you like a super crafty person that you can like use craft as an escape, or do you like you're not a crafty person at all and you just want to avoid it, but you do other things to like have that me time?
I really like crafting. Like, sometimes I'll do like I love Michaels, so just finding like really
Yeah.
cute stuff at Michaels and like creating like cute things I can put on my walls. Like, I that's kind of like my main thing. Like, I'm not saying that I'm particularly good at it, but it really gives me a lot of joy to create something, even if it's just like something basic or like I watched a tutorial on YouTube about how to create a craft and then I did something,
Oh,
that type
cool.
of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very good with the whole tutorial thing, so I kind of fall back on the things that my old grandmother taught me before, you know, because she like grew up and she always wanted us to be very ladylike women, and so we got these really intense lessons on like knitting and sewing and washing and all this other stuff. Um, so yeah, like I tend to fall back on what she's taught me because I am hopeless with YouTube videos. I never get it to look the way they do. So myself, I have a long-term health illness that makes me slow down and appreciate the day. What makes you stop and smell the roses? What makes you just enjoy every minute of the day?
It definitely ties back to mindfulness. So kind of like being aware of the moment, not thinking like I have so many things to do, or like I messed up those things
Yep.
I was supposed to do and I didn't like how that turned out, and then kind of just focusing on the present moment and being like, hey, like I can breathe right now. I have a safe place to be. I have a quiet place to be. I have this cute dude just hanging out here.
Aw, little bunny.
Yeah,
For all the viewers at home, there's this tiny, cute little black thing that is now giving her cuddles and looking sweet and twitching his nose. We would all be falling on the floor going, oh! Yeah,
so
I
just
love it.
appreciating how like soft he is and just kind of like, appreciating the moment. So that's kind of like what gets me to focus on like, hey, this is
Yeah,
life.
of
You're in it.
course.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, live it, appreciate it. You never know what day it's gonna come. Yeah, no, I get that, and I think with my disease because it's been with me my entire life. I almost thought of it as my best. That was my invisible friend. Like I was a normal kid. I didn't have like an invisible friend that you create. Mine's actually existed inside my body, so I
Yeah.
couldn't get away from him. So like I think that's so cool, and that's why I try and appreciate the day because I know like my disease can make it more difficult than it needs to be. So, what's your favorite place to curl up during the day? Is it like the garden, a cafe, or a reader's nook? Where's your place to just go with your book and, you know, just to get swept away with the actual book itself?
I'm pretty much a homebody. Like I don't really love doing like nature exploring stuff. I'm not a huge camper or anything, so I like to go
Neither
on
am
nice
I, so you're
walks.
good. Yeah.
I like to go on nice walks, but I feel like if I'm feeling super comfortable, it's going to be like getting ready for bed, just cozy in bed, like reading what I'm really enjoying. That's kind of like my nice little safe space.
That's my go-to as well. Like I either read in the bath for 4 hours and my husband's like threatening to like physically remove me, or I'm curled up in the bed and he's trying to sleep and I've got my little neck light on and I'm trying to get through like just another chapter. He'll sleep through just one more chapter, you know? Like
Right.
so yeah, I get that. I love that. Everyone's got to have their place to read, I think.
Exactly.
So we're at the final part of the show, which is actually the word game. Now, this is where all of my guests get anxious, and so do I. I don't know why. It seems to be an instant reaction. And all the listeners kind of get all hyped up because they always like to hear what our answers are going to be, I suppose. Um, and I actually gave you the theme of an English cafe, a really sort of fancy English cafe. I don't know why. It's just sort of like kind of when I was picturing you, I just sort of pictured you sitting in high tea and having cakes and sticky buns and just having that like really good time with, the porcelain teacup and the cute little lace gloves. I don't know why. I went back to like fancy English time. I
That's
don't know how my head
fantastic. I
works.
love that.
Yeah, well, I think on it like a Bridgerton. We have our Bridgerton moment, I suppose. So your first word is sweets.
Okay, so chocolate croissants, my,
Oh,
my absolute fave. Like it's this kind of like a
same.
childhood thing for me where me and my mom would go to the bakery, we would get a chocolate croissant, and then we would go to the patio and like eat them. Yeah, so that's a huge thing for me. Chocolate croissants, and then just straight donuts, especially sour cream glazed, which is kind of like a
Ooh,
cake donut.
yeah,
That's just oh, it's my fave.
I know what you mean. So what about coffee?
Coffee, I don't like coffee. If I have a coffee, it's probably going to be like 2/3 milk and mostly sugar.
That's mine. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like I'm 99% milk and then like a dash of coffee and then it's like three sugars.
Right.
Like like people say to me like what's the point in adding the coffee at all, Crystal? I'm like it gives it flavor. Milk, gives
Little
the milk a
dash of
bit of
coffee.
flavor. She's then they're just like it's just milk, Crystal. So what about sticky buns? You know the good ones that like have the caramel on top and they stick your fingers together.
Oh yeah, those like are reminiscent of the kind of donuts I like. So just like yeah, I'm a definitely a big sugar person. So yeah, sticky buns
It
definitely
gets
high on the list.
everywhere.
Yeah,
You cannot eat something like that and stay perfectly clean. Like it's supposed to go just like all over your face and your clothes and your hands. That's
exactly.
what I love about like good cream cakes. Oh, and actually, funnily enough, the next word is donuts.
Okay, so I've already given that I like sour cream glazed. I like anything that has like a nice like jelly filling. Those are always
Oh,
fun.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
there's in Canada we have Tim Hortons, which is like this coffee kind of like Starbucks things, but like Starbucks for Canada, and we have these delicious blueberry filled donuts, and
Ooh.
they're like purple and they like look like flowers, and those are some of my favorites.
Do you know what's so funny? You just mentioned that we have just gotten one open up in Glasgow.
Nice,
Like,
love that.
literally our first one here in Scotland. So you've made me go, I'm gonna have to get my husband to drive me there. Sorry, Ian.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
He's gonna hate me. He's like, would you stop coming up with places? So what about cheesecake?
Oh yeah. So when I was a kid, I did not get the appeal of cheesecake, but as I got older, one of my favorites of all time. I really like red velvet cheesecake. That's
Yeah.
just classic perfection. Like that's really what I enjoy.
There's this growing up I didn't get it either, right? And then I went to my cousin's wedding and there's this little hotel in an island called Orkney in Scotland that has this Orkney cheesecake and it's Orkney fudge that makes the cheesecake and I'm just telling you it's the best I think I ever tasted in my life. So after this I'll actually send you the recipe so you can try it. But oh, heaven, honestly, heaven in like a fork or a spoon or whatever you use. Just oh, you could eat just like the base and then fall in love with it. It's that good.
I definitely feel that because chocolate cheesecakes, fudge, all that stuff. We have Cheesecake Factory. We only have a couple in Canada. There's only one
I am desperate to
location in
try
my
that.
city. The
Yeah.
line is like you can't get a reservation. You have to just be there and wait for 2 hours, and it's always
Oh
full.
jeez. Oh no. Well, it must be worth it though.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's a huge demand for us here.
What about freshly baked rolls? What do you think of when you think of that?
Oh, rolls. So I am from my ancestry is from West Africa,
Yeah.
specifically Ghana, and we make these sweet bread um, delicacies where it's kind of just like it looks like a normal loaf of bread, but it literally tastes like a donut when you like bite into it, and you just like dip it into like
Oh
hot
wow.
chocolate. Um,
Yeah.
so It's like you just take a hunk of the bread. It's not sliced. You just take a huge hunk and then you just like dip it in the hot chocolate, and it's just really delicious. So yeah,
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
it's referenced in the book, so you'll see that.
So, okay, well, I guess you kind of answered this question, but bread.
Oh yes, okay, yeah, that's definitely my answer. Sweet. So yeah, sweet bread. From Ghana. That's definitely my favorite. And then I'm a huge fan of just like really thick, floury, sugary breads in general. There's I love
So many now, yeah.
yeah, and then also besides that, just like grilled cheese, just on a nice grilled
Oh
cheese does
yeah, I
not hit
love
the
grilled
same
cheese.
on like a whole wheat bread. You need to have white
No, it doesn't.
bread.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I need a decent white bread for that. Yeah, I
exactly.
totally
Yeah.
agree. Well, thank you so much for being on today. It has been an absolute dream and a pleasure. And, we definitely have to have you back for when your second book comes out, so we can talk about it. And I will be spotlighting it in our monthly spotlighting that we do. I don't know exactly when that spotlight will come out because I'm still trying to get all like the calendar stuff organized because like people don't realize podcasts take a lot to organize.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'll let you know when it's spotlighted, and yeah, you let me know when your second one's coming out, and we'll get you back on, and we'll talk a little bit more, maybe even dive into your book a bit more, because we won't be spoiling anything for anybody. So does that sound like a plan? Are you up for coming back to the Book and Life podcast?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. So my second book will be
Yeah,
coming out in 2024. So after next year,
perfect.
yeah, definitely up for that.
Yeah, well, hit me up when you know the dates and everything, and we'll sit down and we'll get into it, and we'll get into a lot more of the backgrounds and the dancers, and maybe a little bit more about the writing styles and techniques you used for actually putting it together. I think that would be
that
awesome.
sounds Yeah, that sounds super fun. Thank you so much, Crystal. This has been awesome.
Not a problem. So remember to check back next week, guys, as we've got another guest, not as gorgeous, but just as amazing. So, wait, you'll not want to miss it. So I shall see you all next week.